Hi friends, welcome to our channel. Today we are going to discuss about Biology Class 11 NCRT Chapter 1, that is the living world. And here when we come to the living world, here what is living? First thing that we have to know is what is living. Distinctive characters that are exhibited by the living organisms are growth, reproduction, ability to sense environment and mount a suitable response, which is called as consciousness and metabolism. Here, when we come to the growth, all living organisms grow. Increase in mass and increase in number. There is two types. And when we come to increase in mass, here non-living organisms or non-living things like mountains, boulders, sand mounds, they too grow. By the accumulation of some of the material on the surface of it, we can see a growth in them. Do we consider them as living things? No, right? An increase in number. Here, increase in number of cells, multicellular organisms like plants or animals, whatever, grows by cell division. Here, the growth is from inside, and therefore growth cannot be taken as defining property of living organism because as we can see increase in mass, here we can see mountains also grow. In based on that consideration, we are not at all taking growth as a defining property of living organisms. And here we want to know another thing is a dead organism does not grow. And next, to the topic of reproduction. Reproduction likewise is a characteristic of living organisms. Reproduction refers to the production of progeny possessing features more or less similar to those of parents, isn't it? They may be similar to the parents or they may not be similar to the parents. And here, when we come to reproduction, they are of two types: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Here, fungi is reproduced through asexual spores. Many of asexual spores get germinated and fungi will be germinated. And yeast and hydra through budding. And filamentous algae, protonema of mosses are by fragmentation. If the fragment is broken down and it was germinated and it gives us to life of some of the algae and mosses. And many of the organisms which do not reproduce, like mules, sterile worker bees, infertile couples, human couples. And here, when we come to these, some of the human couples they may not have ability to reproduce, but they are absolutely living organisms. By considering this, we are saying that reproduction cannot be all inclusive defining characteristics of living organisms, and no living object is capable of reproducing or replicating itself, isn't it? No living objects. For example, when we take as a duster or a chalk, do they give births to the same progeny or similar or dissimilar to that? Don't they? Will they give birth? No, right? So non-living thing cannot give birth to some of the organisms. Life exists from the living things. Another characteristic of life is metabolism. What is metabolism? The sum total of all the chemical reactions that are occurring in our body. Like whatever the digestion, respiration, what the antigens that are performing in our body, everything, they are coming under metabolism. They are all the chemical reactions that are occurring in our body. And no non-living object exhibits metabolism, isn't it? No non-living object, whatever we they cannot exhibit metabolism. They do not undergo chemical reactions in it. And metabolic reactions can be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free system in the test tubes. or that is in vitro. Here, the isolated metabolic reactions in vitro are not living things but surely living reactions. Based on this point, cellular organization of the body is a defining feature of life forms. A presence of cells and the functioning because of that, they are considering that cellular organization of the body is a defining feature of living forms. And the next thing is consciousness. And what is consciousness? Whenever we are solving a problem or we are watching a movie, in that case we will be very conscious. In such a way, consciousness, now we are going to discuss. And living organisms have the ability to sense their surroundings or environment. In the same way, here, respond to environmental stimuli, which could be physical, chemical, or biological. Whenever we take the stimuli, we just respond to that. Likewise, plants too respond to external factors like light, water, temperature, and other organisms and pollutants. Here, self consciousness is human is the only organism who is aware of himself. That is self consciousness. And all the organisms are aware of their surroundings, so that we are considering that consciousness as a defining property of living organisms. And okay, this phenomenon for cells to tissues, tissues together form tissue system, tissue system together form organ, organs to organ system, and group of organs system can form an organism. And this phenomenon is the true in the hierarchy of organizational complexity at all the levels. For example, like species, genus to phylum, or division to division and kingdom. In such a way, the hierarchy is seen. Diversity in the living world. The number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million, that is 17 to 18 lakhs. Okay, let's take an example. If we are looking around in our own place, by staying in our own place, we are looking around, we can observe lots and lots of animals or plants, all the living organisms. As we are taking as a deciduous forest as an example, there are lots and lots of living organisms present. So that the number of species that we are knowing is 1.7 to 1.8 million. As the area increases, even the diversity in the living organisms to increase. By we should not confuse about these, right? Organism to organism, so that we are identifying the organisms particularly and giving them particular name. In our local areas, we call some of the plants like different names. They differ from place to place and area to area, state to state. In order to avoid that confusion, the scientists together worked on the thought of nomenclature, that is giving a scientific name to them. For plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria which are provided in International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, that is ICBN. You may ask, how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Geological Nomenclature, that is ICZN. Here, generic name and specific epithet. There are two components, that is generic name and specific epithet. And here, this because of these two components, that is named as binomial nomenclature. When we take example as mango, Mangifera indica. Here the Mangifera is genus name and indica is species or specific epithet. And there are some of the universal rules of nomenclature. And biological names, they should be, they are Latin, they are derived from Latin, and they should be written in italics. That is rule number one. And the first word, that is genus, that is Mangifera, that is genus. And indica, the second word, that is species or specific epithet. And when handwritten, separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. Here, when Mangifera indica is written, they should be separately underlined. When they are printed, they should be printed in italics. Okay. Next, the genus starts with capital letter. Here, the M, that is capital letters, and the specific epithet starts with small letter. Here indica, I is small letter. And the other is name of the author appears after the specific epithet in abbreviated form. That is example Mangifera indica, we are taking that Mangifera indica linnaeus, LINN, that is abbreviated form. And here this describes that first Mangifera indica was described by Linnaeus. And next we are coming to classification. We are taking we are arranging organisms, all the living organisms, in a perfect groups in order to easily analyze. For example, when we talk about dogs, we have an imagination only on dogs. When we talk on cats, we only imagine on cats, or wheat or rice. We do not confuse. They are arranged in a group, right? That's what we do not confuse. In the same way, they are classified. Here, the taxa, scientific term for those categories like dogs, cats, mammals, wheat, plant, animals, all these are named as taxa. For example, when we take dogs, dog is a taxa. When we take cats, cat is a taxa. Mammals is a taxa. They are given a scientific term called taxa for particular group. And here, hence, based on the characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is called taxonomy. Based on their characteristics like morphological characters or internally, they are considering all the structures and dividing them into particular groups. That is called as taxa, and this process of classification is called taxonomy. Based on external and internal structures, the classification is going through. And structure of cell, which the structure of cell, this in this organism, the cell structure is so. In this organism, the cell structure is so. Based on that, we are differentiating into groups. For example, when we take animal cell and plant cell, based on cell walls, they will be differed. And development process, based on which they are developing, they are also considering under classification, from tadpoles larvae to adult form. In the such a way, they are differentiating. And ecological information of organisms, it is a main thing that is going through classification. Even the systematics are included in these ecological information of organisms to classify. Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms, their diversities, but also relationships among them. They are even interested in relationships between organism to organism. This branch of study was referred to as systematics. The word systematics is derived from Latin word and systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his publication. The scope on classification. Yeah, the systematics was later enlarged into identification, nomenclature, and classification. Systematic takes into account evolutionary relationships between the organisms. Here, that is evolutionary relations between the organisms. They even study on the evolutionary relationships, and they are being classified. And taxonomic categories. When we come to taxonomic categories, taxonomic hierarchy, that is, there are particular taxons, which is even the kingdom is one of the taxon, and phylum is one of the taxon. In fact, represents a rank or category is referred to as taxon. And taxonomic hierarchy is the category part of overall taxonomic arrangement is called taxonomic category. And the whole thing from species to kingdom is considered as taxonomical hierarchy. In ascending order, we are taking species, species to genus, genus to family, family to order, order to class, class to phylum, phylum to kingdom. When we are going from species, taxonomic studies consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. And when we come to genus, genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common in comparison to species of other genera. And when we come to family, the next category, family has a group of related genera with still less number of similarity as compared to genus and species. And the next one is order. Here, order, this category includes related families. And when we come to class, this category includes related orders. Example, primata comprising monkeys, gorilla, gibbon is placed in the class Mammalia. And phylum, the classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with mammals, constitute the next higher category called phylum. And the next is kingdom. All the animals belonging to the phylum are assigned to the highest category called kingdom Animalia in the classification system of animals. When it comes to plants, they are considering as a kingdom Plantae. And here, when we are taking example as Homo sapiens, that is human being, the species is sapiens, and genus is Homo. The family is Hominidae. Order Primata, class Mammalia, phylum Chordata, kingdom Animalia. In the same way, the taxonomic categories are described. For example, organisms with their taxonomic categories. Here, when we are considering this table, housefly, biological name is Musca domestica, genus is Musca, family Muscidae, order Diptera, class Insecta, phylum or division, that is Arthropoda. Phylum is Arthropoda. And mango, Mangifera indica, genus Mangifera, family Anacardiaceae, order Sapindales, class Dicotyledonea, phylum Angiospermae, wheat. Here, Triticum estivum, genus Triticum, and family Poaceae, order Poales, class Monocotyledonea, phylum, that is angiosperm. Taxonomical aids. The collection of actual specimens of plant and animal species is essential and prime source of taxonomic studies. That is, there will be a specimen that of a plants and animals they are collected in a particular place for taxonomical studies, and it is helpful in the view of systematics too. Taxonomium. It is a storehouse of collected plant specimens that are dried, pressed, and preserved on sheets. First, they should be dried. They should be pressed between the book pages, and they should be preserved on the sheets. And herbarium sheet carry label providing information about date, place of collection, place of collection, English, local and botanical names, family, collectors' names, etc. And there will be a box at the end of the herbarium sheet. All these details will should be noted there, and it is considered as a quick referral systems of taxonomic taxonomical aids. And the length of the herbarium is 29 into 41 square centimeters. And next is botanical gardens. The famous Royal Botanical Garden is at Kew, England. Indian Botanical Garden is at Howrah, India. National Botanical Research Institute, that is at Lucknow, India. And next, coming to museums. Here, museum, the specimens that are preserved in containers or jars in preservation solutions, that is museum. We often go to museums and see all the preserved specimens, right? And insects, they are collected in insect boxes by collecting, killing, and pinning. And birds and mammals are stuffed. For example, we take rabbit, they are stuffed with a cotton and they are preserved. And even the skeletons of animals can be observed in museums and zoological parks. Wild animals are kept in a protected environment under the human control, and food habits and behavior can be identified by the humans. And the next taxonomical aid is key. The keys are based on the contrasting characters, generally in a pair called couplet. And each statement in the key is called lead or lead. Flora contains the actual account of habitat and distribution of plants of a given area. That is, they are containing actual account of the habitat where they live, and the distribution of plants where the area at a particular area they live. And catalogs, they represents the index to the plant species found in a particular area, that gives index. Manuals provide information for identification of name of species that are found in an area. And monographs contain information on any one taxon. They gives only information on only one taxon. And if you need many more chapters from NCRT biology, never forget to subscribe our channel. All the best, friends. Bye.